Excuse me. All right, so yesterday what we were doing is we were playing around with Flask. We were just basically getting an app up and running, and we also did some form submission, right? So today we're basically just going to be reviewing form submission, how that whole process works. So let's go to our Flask app that we were working on yesterday. Close this out here. Okay. Let's just talk about what's going on in the code here. So I'm basically going to go around the room and have you guys explain to me what's happening in each line of code. All right? Let's start with line 1. Jessica, go ahead and tell us all what's going on.
So we're just importing Flask from Flask, but we're also importing the render template function and the request and redirect from Flask as well.
Okay. Good. So these three things, render template, request, and redirect, those are all what?
Also functions.
They're all functions, right? And then Flask, capital, is what?
It's the not the virtual environment, but the thing.
It's the what? What did you say? Did you say the thingy?
I don't know
Exactly.
sure.
What's that? So the capital letter tells us something, right?
Yeah.
What does that mean, generally?
It's important.
Okay, fair enough. Specifically, yeah. All right. So who knows the answer to this?
I
Tom.
think a library.
Library? No.
I think you got it.
Okay.
Is it a class?
It is a class. Very good,
You can
Jess.
skip
Good job,
me now.
Jessica.
Well
You
done.
can skip me.
You wanted to get a head start there. Okay. All right. Very good. Cool. So yeah, when we see that capital there, that's telling us this is a class that we're importing, right? Okay, cool. So let's get down to line 3, and for that we will have Lance explain that line of code.
Alright, so basically we are making an instance of Flask and we're calling it app.
Mhm.
And then the name is it's the same thing as like the main, but in this case it's just saying that that's what it's taking in as a parameter.
Yeah, so what name is going to evaluate to in this case when we run the app directly is it will be the double under main double under, right? However, if we were importing this file from some other file and running it that way, then it would actually be the name of the file. Okay? So this is going to be evaluated to double under main, and then we're going to invoke the Flask class against that, right? Okay, cool. All right, next. Mark?
Oh, I was going to go to the restroom.
I like it. I was just on my way out. See you later.
So number 5, that wants to show the route, the way that it wants to go. So there's 2 methods. Is that what that's saying?
So what we're doing is the app has this method called route, right? And we're using what's called a decorator here. So the decorator means that whatever's happening here on line 5 is going to be paired to whatever comes right after it. Whatever function comes right after it. Okay, so what about these pieces inside here? Can you tell me what's going on in there? So these arguments that we're giving it.
I don't know.
Well, what does this look like here?
Process.
Yes,
So-
does it? So if I open, hold on one second. Let me just open this. So take a look here. We have this showing up somewhere here in the form, right? So what do you think we're using process for here?
As a section of
Section, okay.
oh, we wanted to do something.
Okay, true.
Think about like a funky address in the search bar. Yeah. That looks like part of it. You see it. Yeah. Usually so in the URL. Okay. You know, you see like the slash or something. Yeah. It's like tacking that on the URL. So whatever you put right there, it's kind of like appending it to the URL. Okay.
So in our case, our application is just being run on localhost 7000, right? Okay, so where we want this form to process is just going to be localhost 7000 / process. Okay, so that means that when I submit this form, what route is it going to go to? What URL is it going to be directed to? Okay, so that was the first argument that's being passed there. And then how about this? We have this methods equals, and what data structure is this? I see these square braces. What's that? A list, correct. Okay, so what do I have in there? Get and post. Okay, so what does that mean?
One will put it in the search bar, or the URL, and one won't.
And one can alter the attributes. Is that what that is?
Not really. What do you mean by alter the attributes? So again, this isn't. We're not really dealing with a. Well, I mean, we are dealing with an instance of a class, right? The app itself. But in terms of altering attributes, all this is doing is it's saying, we will take two types of requests at this route. We'll take a GET request, which would just be like I could type in that address in my browser, right? I could go localhost 7000 / process, and I'd get there, and that would be fine. Or if I submit a form that has a method of post, we'll accept that kind of request as well.
Oh,
Okay.
I see.
Now, normally when we do our form stuff, we're really only going to take in a post. Yeah, I was just kind of showing you guys we could accept both types. Okay.
That's the one. That's the one where it shows on the. Was it like the information? If you were submitted for the GET, like it shows the information on the top.
Exactly. So in the URL, you'd see all these different key value pairs depending on what you had submitted. So it might say question mark first name equals Morley and so forth, right? So that's generally why we're going to be using post requests for most of these things, because we may be taking in some sensitive information like a password or whatever that we don't want to be exposed in the address, right? Cool. All right, next line, number 6, Alejandro. Dude, you're in line. You can't get out of line.
Oh, the line 6?
Line 6.
Oh, okay, so that's.
I gave you an easy one too, by the way.
That's a function, right?
Let's try to be a little more explicit. Yeah, it's a function. Let's
Yeah,
come on, explain it.
oh, it has a div, so it's a function.
Has def.
Like that. So it's printing the request for a form and the request for the slide.
No, I'm only asking you to do
Oh,
line
it's
6.
right.
Slow down. Just explain line 6. Try to be a little bit more technical. Don't just say it's a function. Oh, okay. What's happening though in the code?
Actually, I'm not sure what is that. I have that for the first.
No, we already covered line 5. We're on line 6.
I already explained it.
Anyone else want to take a crack at this?
Yeah, the name of the function.
Okay.
What's the name of the function?
We are defining a function called process. That's all I really wanted to hear, right? Okay? You know, we don't just want to look at it and go, oh, well, it's a function. Yeah, but let's be a little bit more technical. Cool? Next line. 7, Connor.
Looks like you're printing something.
What is it? what am I printing?
The form attribute or request
Okay,
thing.
from the request thing. Okay, so what is all of this? What's this form attribute? What is that going to have in it?
Like all the information that the user put in the
Correct. It's going to have all the data. So if we had that first name field, then it would be first name, and then whatever that data was, we'd have last name, and then whatever that data was, right? That is the actual data that came in from the form.
What type of data is in form? Is it like a dictionary?
It's called an immutable multi-dict. Okay, because each key could actually have a list associated with it. So I could potentially have multiple first names in there. In the forms that we make, we're not going to do it that way. I mean, it's generally just going to be like, we'll have one first name, one last name, and so forth. But you could have a form that was taking in more than one of those things. Okay?
Can we go over that again? So you're printing a request dot form, and request is. Well, what does the period do? It invokes.
So what the period does is that basically we have this request object, right, that we imported from Flask, right there actually, and then the form attribute is just going to be all the data that came in through the form. Okay. And we'll be able to access it in the same way that we access properties of a dictionary. So if we want to get, say, the first name or whatever, we could say request.form and then brackets first name. Okay? Does that pretty much answer your question?
It's a cloudy question here. What request dot form is. But what it's saying.
All right, let me just see where everyone's at. So in terms of request.form, can I have thumbs on that? Just go down. Ooh. So good. All right. How about if we just take a look at it again? Because we were looking at it yesterday when the form submission came in. Let's just take a look at it and see what it is. All right. I think this thing is still running, but let me do. Okay, yeah. So we're still running here.
Question?
Yeah.
So the request is just a function, right? It's not an attribute?
No, the request is not a function. It's actually an object that has this attribute form on it, right? So in fact, that's a really good question. Let's print it out. I'm going to comment this real quick, and then let's just print type request. So we get rid of that. And then actually I'm gonna throw some line breaks in front of it so that we don't have all this stuff clogging up the terminal here. So let's go backslash. Okay. All right, so let's go back to localhost 7000. 7000. Our lovely green page. Oh shoot! I put this in the wrong spot. Sorry about that. Let me drag this to the right spot. Okay. Did you guys see that confirm form submission there? Showed up in the browser because I refreshed it and I was on a post route, right? Okay, so here you can see the type is this class workzug. I think the workzug is
That's on
the
Python package.
yeah, it's like that's the developer for Flask, right? Okay, some German thing. Yeah, it sounds like it, right? Okay. So this is actually a class, it looks like, right? And then within that class, we have the attribute that we're calling here, which is just form. So how do we know that this is not a method, first off? How do we know that we're not calling a method? I heard no parentheses, correct. Yes, we're not actually invoking a method, right? We're just grabbing that property. Okay, cool. So now that we see what type of thing request is, let's go back to actually print the form itself. Let me just drop this in here again. Okay, cool. If I submit this one more time, oops. So here's what we've got down here. Hopefully you guys can see this okay. We've got this immutable multi-dict, which has all these different key value pairs, right? So I've got first name, and then we've got hair color down there. Okay. Now again, if we wanted to print a specific piece of that, like if I just wanted to print out the first name, I could do that with bracket notation. So I can say first name, go back here. Okay, and now we're just getting the first name. Okay, so the actual request.form itself is what kind of data type?
Immutable array or list.
It's an immutable multi-dict, but I can generally treat it just like a regular dictionary, right? So I can easily grab a specific piece of that, a key, using the key name, just like we would do with a regular dictionary. Okay.
It's immutable, so you can't change the values that are put in there, but you can add values to it.
Nope. So it should be immutable all the way. So let's try to actually set a new key value pair. Okay, so let's just say request.form at some new equals some val. And this should error out on us. So yeah, notice what we got here. Immutable multi-dict objects are immutable. Okay, so just saying don't touch this, you cannot change it. All right, cool. So let's get rid of that. Let me get rid of this too. All right. So I think, actually, let me just take this out here. Yawns all around. All right, we're on line 10.
Thanks.
Oh, there's a question. All right.
So the request is squiggly line, which means it's referring to the import, right?
Yeah, so again, what was happening here is that VS Code does not know about our virtual environment. So therefore, it's saying you don't have access to Flask, first off. And then because we're pulling out request from Flask, and we're also pulling out this Flask class, all of those things have squigglies.
You
Right.
said that the capital letter class is the class and everything else is a function.
Right.
After that.
Well, almost everything, right? Request, we learned, was not a function. That is actually a class.
Okay, gotcha. So we imported functions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so render template was a function. Redirect is a function, right? Okay. Flask with a capital, that's a class. Well, I mean, the way that we learn, you can either check the documentation or we could run that type function on it to check. So, I mean, that's how we found out.
I thought you
I did, didn't I?
Isn't it an option?
Said that it was a class, no?
Yeah, it's a type of
Or-
that class. So it's an object.
Yeah, it is an object of that, whatever it was, workzeg. Good grief. It was way back up here somewhere. Yeah. Yeah, so hence why this would not be capitalized, because it is actually an object of that class.
Okay, so
Okay.
Okay.
So it's an instance.
An instance, correct. All right, where were we? We were at line 10, no? Okay. Next, Alex.
So it's gonna after the what is the name of the process? After the function. Process.
Yeah, we're just in the process function.
Yeah, it returns a redirect to a different page, so it doesn't do multiple forms in the same page. So after
Okay.
the form is done, or whatever you're doing, it just redirects to
Okay, yeah. What and where are we redirecting to?
or to nothing. To those, it's just a slash.
Well, it's something, right? I mean, it's
I mean-
still a page.
It's
where are we
leaving the
going to?
process page
And where are we going to?
to the just where the beginning is.
Beginning.
Where-
All right.
where it is without the process part.
So let's start kind of calling that the index.
Okay. Then.
So the index is just kind of like the root route of the application.
Yeah.
All right, good. Cool. Next, Jess, you've got line 12.
Okay, so that's just the route for the function index.
Okay. But we wouldn't really call that well, okay, you're right. Yeah, for this function index. So this / just means that it's actually the root route of the application.
Root route for the
Yeah, exactly. So here on line 12, that's all we're doing is we're just saying this root route is going to be connected to whatever comes right after it. Okay? All right, cool. Long, line 13.
We're making a function called index.
Very good. You got an easy one. All right, line 14. Keanu.
To be honest, I'm not too good at this.
That's why we're doing it, to get better.
I don't know how to explain it well. Let's see. I see the brackets for users, but like I don't know how to like really.
Start here first. What's going on here with
Um,
users itself?
see, I'm bad with like I don't know defining things, so I see what's going on, but I just don't know how to like explain it.
Users just need to find.
Okay.
And we're declaring this variable users, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what's happening here with the equal sign?
We're setting it to be whatever's inside the square brackets.
Mm-hmm. So what the square brackets tell us this is going to be what kind of data?
Is it like a dictionary? Or
Not with square brackets.
a
right?
list?
A
Oh,
list.
A list, yeah.
Yes, a list. And then inside of that, we have these curly braces, which means that each item in the list is what?
Oh god, hold on. I know.
You know this. I know you know this.
Key values? No?
They will be key values,
Yeah.
but what do we call that data type?
Oh.
That structure.
I know, Tom, you know, it's not how my brain works. Did it say dictionary?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a joke about dictionaries. I don't think I
they
read that.
made a dirty joke with
Oh. Oh, okay.
Sorry.
All right, yeah, we won't record that, but fair enough. All right, so yeah, that's good. So we're declaring this variable users, and we're assigning it to a list. That list has some dictionaries in it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh man, makes sense when you say it.
You feel better now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. Let's keep going. Line 24. Tom?
Yes. On line 24, we will return the function named render the template, and inside the function we have some attribute. We will recall the HTML index, and also we put the variable cohomate equal user, which we already declared above.
Okay, so let's be careful about. Yeah, I heard you say something like we're returning the function.
Yeah.
Is that what we're doing? Are we giving the browser back the function? Like, hey, here's the render template function.
We give it back the browser the function
For
to
sure.
render the template.
Are we not calling the function then? We are, aren't we? You see these parens right here? So here, when I say render template, I set up these parens right here. So what does that mean? What are we doing?
At the beginning, we declare the render template is a function.
Yeah, we know it's a function,
Yeah.
right? So, but are we just returning the function, or are we returning the result of calling a function?
We're passing the value inside. So it will return the value, which will be the index of HTML, and also we declare the new variable cohort made will be equal the list of users.
Okay. So when we invoke this function render template, so let's be clear here, we are invoking a function, right? Okay, cool. So when we invoke that function and we give it these arguments, so we give it the argument of what template are we going to render, and then we also give it this other argument of cohort mates, which is set to users. What's Flask going to do for us at that point?
This will show on the browser
Okay.
the index of.
So Flask has to do some work before we can do that, right? So our browser doesn't, for instance, does our browser know how to make these substitutions in here?
No. The Flask will tell it to do.
So Jinja, the templating engine, right, is going to make these substitutions on our part.
Yeah.
And then once that HTML page is completely built, we'll just give it back to the browser. Here you go. Now you display this for the person, right? Okay. All right, cool. Let's keep going here. We are on line 26. Michael?
It says if the name of this file, which is the .py file,
Mhm.
The name that's assigned to it when we created this, equals main, which is what would happen if this is like the parent class.
No, not the parent class. What do we say about when does name equal main?
When you're creating the main, when you're creating a file, there is a name that gets assigned to it. And I think if it's the first instance of a class, that's the name.
Anyone else want to chime in on this one?
So it's
When we run it on the class,
Yeah, very good. Okay. So when we're running this file directly, meaning I go in and I say Python server.py, that means I'm running it directly, right? So what that's going to evaluate to at that point is just going to be the double under main double under. However, if I were importing this file from some other file, what would name evaluate to at that point?
something other than
whatever,
Correct.
whatever the file
Specifically. Yeah, so in this case, our file name is server, so it should evaluate to that, right? Okay. Cool.
So that's the condition that says if you're in this file, then do the next.
So if we're running server.py directly, let's go ahead and run our application. So if we weren't, then that condition would be skipped over, right?
That's going to be wrong.
Yes, he is. All right, go ahead, Brian. 27.
Yeah, so if the name does match, then you run which sets the port to 7,000, and you debug, so you're refreshing after you make a change.
Yeah, exactly. So by us saying that we want debug to be true, it's going to show us all the different requests that are made as we go in the terminal. And it's also going to refresh our code on an ongoing basis. So as we make changes, we'll be seeing the current code. Pretty nice, right? That's a good developer experience. So we've gone all through server.py. Let's just kind of glance through our template here. And I want to see if you guys have any things that you... Well, let's touch on line 8 because that required a little bit of coding. Linda. No one escapes alive.
Just linking this data sheet.
You can do better than that. That's true.
I'm not sure what
But look-
URL means, but I know you're also linking the static. And the static is where the style is done on this, so CSS and stuff.
Mhm.
Um,
So what's the deal with these double curly braces? What's happening with those?
It's just a way to link folders to the index.
Not exactly. because we use double curlies in other spots in our template, right? Like for instance, down here on line 27, I wanted to show the user's hair color, right? So what does that mean when I use these double curly braces? Yes, something is going to actually show up in the template, right? Okay, and then what's happening here? So we have this URL4. What does that look like? Well, what does it look like, though? Because I've got parentheses
It's a function.
after it, right? Okay, so I'm calling a function, right? We're good with that. And then what do you think this static means?
So I'm passing the static folder.
Okay, yeah, so it means it's going to be connected to our static folder. And then we have the second argument there, which is that the file name is style.css. Okay, so what does that mean?
Oh, so then that's we're going into the static folder into the CSS the CSS file.
Exactly. So we're inside the static folder, and then we're grabbing that style.css file, right?
And then what does the URL thing mean? The URL for?
So what that is it's a function that will help us route requests for our static assets. So like if we had a style sheet, or if we had an image, or a JavaScript file, something like that.
No, what does it mean?
Href, that just means what is the address of this thing? Okay, where is it located? All right, let's see if there's anything else here we can talk about. Yes, there is. Line 21. Jessica, you're back up. What's going on?
I honestly don't know.
But this looks like a regular for loop that we've been doing in Python, no?
Yes. So it's just going through all the users in the cohort. So it's just looping through.
Yeah, so we're doing a loop through all the cohort mates, and then for each one of those cohort mates, what are we going to call it? A user. Exactly. Good. All right, next, Lance, let's just look at line 23. Actually, 23 and 24. Let's bundle those up.
Okay. So basically, it's Jinja's sending user and then the parameter of first name up to like the server.py file. And user is just one of the cohort mates.
Okay. Okay, so let's kind of be clear about what's going on here. We're substituting in these particular values in the template. So when Jinja sort of compiles all that together, it's just going to turn it into regular HTML that the browser can understand.
So it's almost
Okay.
like a placeholder.
So yeah, there's a substitution process going on in here. Okay, good. All right, next, Mark, give me line 26. Actually, if we want to do, let's just do 26 through 28, that little block.
So I'm assuming it's in connection with 23 and 24, where that user is, that's the hair color of the user.
Okay. So the connection with the user is actually up here on line 21, no? Because
Oh,
as we
yeah.
loop through, each user is going to be referred to as user. Okay. All right, cool. So go ahead.
Oh, I think that was it. So, wait, you said 26 and 27.
Yeah, so we're just kind of like grouping this as one block of code. 26 through 28. Because one if condition.
Oh. Then that just means that that's the hair color.
Well, correct. Yeah, in line 27, we do have their hair color, but what's happening? So, if it's true that their hair color is dark mustard, then what are we doing? We're doing some logic at that point, yeah. Like a math proof or something. Like I told you, your hair color is this. What do these double curlies mean? We just talked about those with the up above where we were doing URL4, right?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else want to jump in on this? Display. Yeah, exactly. So if we have these double curly braces here, that means that whatever value is inside of those curly braces will be evaluated and then put into our template. So when we give it back to the browser, it's going to come back with that value in there, assuming that we've met the condition, right? So if it's true that the hair color is that, then we're going to show that hair color. Okay? So the key distinction here, and I don't think there's anything else we need to touch on down there. The key distinction is that when we're doing a curly brace with a % sign, that's controlling the flow of our code. Okay, so we'll use that for looping. We'll use it for things like conditional. Versus the double curly brace, which means what again, Mark?
The display.
Substitution. Yeah. So the double curly brace means we're substituting in some value into our template so that when that template's built, it will have that value in the HTML. Okay. Is that kind of starting to make sense a little bit? A little bit? Okay.
When you run it in the browser now, you can see it. So like you're gonna be able to see like the hair color, right?
Yeah, exactly. So when we actually go to this page, and we saw that when we went there, we're seeing that hair color in the one case because one person had dark mustard, right?
So the curlies, you'll be able to see on your HTML page the name of the thing that's inside.
So Michael had the dark mustard, and that's where we're actually showing that, right? Okay. So let's have thumbs on this. That was kind of a difficult, excruciating session, but I hope that you guys are getting something out of it. Jess, let's see your thumb. Sideways. Okay. Up. Good. I'm getting a little more up on that. Sideways still. Alejandro. Okay. I want to hear some clarifications from those of you who have sideways thumbs. Anything that we can clarify here before we get together for some pair programming?
So when
Let me go back to the code.
you write on the HTML file with the mustache braces,
Mm-hmm. Like
that's getting
on line
translated-
27, for instance.
That's getting translated by Jinja.
Mm-hmm.
Those curly braces aren't Python, but it's like modeling Python.
Yeah, so the curly braces themselves are not Python, but they're recognized by Jinja. So Jinja knows that, okay, if I find these double curly braces in here, that means that's something that I need to replace with an actual value.
And if you have an if statement or a for statement, you need the colons after.
No, you don't. You'll see that we don't have those there. Yeah, so that's like slightly different. We don't need the colon. But the other thing that's sort of different, because if we're in regular Python, we need the colon, but we don't need the end if, right? So that's slightly different.
What else does Jinja look for?
In terms of like substitutions and so forth?
Is it just the double
It's basically just these things that you guys are going to be working with will be the curly brace, % sign, and then the double curly brace. I did post up a link on the schedule though to the docs if you want to glance at what's available in Jinja,
Okay.
so you can play around with it.
And Jinja just renders the text in HTML.
Yeah, so it's making these substitutions for us so that we can give back a fully fleshed out HTML page to the browser. Because the browser only knows how to deal with HTML. It doesn't know how to deal with this kind of HTML where we're doing substitutions. Right? So if I were to give this back to the browser as is, the browser would just print out these things exactly as is. You'd see all of these, they wouldn't have substituted values.
How do you comment out Ginger stuff?
That's a good question. Let me see if we can get that. I presume this would work. Let me see. Yeah, that works. So the exact same way that you would comment out in HTML. I know this looks a little bit weird because I have ligatures on mine, but it's the left angle bracket followed by an exclamation point and then 2 dashes.
The online module says in like bold letters that HTML does not comment on JavaScript.
I think it says JavaScript. Or no,
Do you think
I
happen to be trying to comment
does it
out
say?
the if statement.
I don't know. It says use Ginger comments.
Oh, yeah.
Like just this and not
Well, and
27.
And the end if, but not
You
the
think it will not
user.
comment out.
So if I comment out these two, I would expect to see the hair color no matter what, right? Because now there's no condition surrounding that. Wait a minute.
So that is the main.
Can you change the if statement to like equal like something else, not Dr.
Sure. That was kind of weird.
So it doesn't. So it still parses
It's still
the
working.
if statement.
Yeah, that's so strange.
But doesn't it give you a link
Actually,
to
Yeah,
read about it?
the Ginger
I don't know.
That's pretty weird.
bracket.
It's not what I would expect, right?
So it's still it's still
Actually, wait.
functions.
So yeah, so I think here's what's going on. The Jinja part is not really being commented out. The HTML part probably is. So in other words, like Jinja is still doing this work and this work, but then when you get to the HTML part, like those wouldn't show up in the HTML. But that doesn't matter because there's no output on those lines anyway. But this output would still be the same as if those things were evaluated.
If you do like a mustache and then a pound sign at the first beginning of comment out.
So like if
to the
you
left of that, yeah, you can do it in front of everything.
no, I don't think that would work.
With, curly bracket content.
Mustache pound.
Yeah.
And then you gotta do it at the end of what you're trying to comment out too, but in reverse order.
Like this?
Yeah.
Oh, you guys actually tried this?
It's linked in the online.
Oh, they talked about it. Okay. You might also be able to install like a Jinja extension in VS Code that would allow you to do like a regular comment out and just do it for you. I think. I haven't really looked for Jinja extensions, but I would guess there is one. So check that out. If anyone finds a good Jinja extension, we could look for it real quick. So here, Jinja 2. Jinja. So that's got like 3.5 stars. Better Jinja. Ooh, there we go. 4.5. Syntax highlighting. Kind of nice. I don't know specifically if it says you can comment out Jinja logic, but I'd imagine you probably could. You guys see any pounds in here? No. Okay. Yeah, so there it is. I mean, there is a Jinja extension if you guys want to try that. All right, cool. Any other final questions before we do pair programming? Do you not want to?